Florida gets marketed like it's one long beach commercial with a ukulele budget, but tucked behind the billboards and sunscreen chaos are towns that feel different. Older, slower, prettier in a way you don't Instagram, you notice. These places don't scream for attention. They sit there quietly, letting history, food, water, and stubborn personality do the talking. Some were here before the United States even existed. Others survived by refusing to change too fast. This is a countdown of 12 Florida towns with big charm. Places that sneak up on you, disarm you, then casually steal your weekend plans. Number 12, St. Augustine, Florida. St. Augustine doesn't feel old, it feels experienced. Like it's already seen every phase of humanity and decided to keep the good parts and ignore the rest. Founded in 1565, this town was doing life before the US even had a rough draft. And you feel that immediately. Not in a museum way, in a, why does this street feel heavier than my phone battery? Way. You walk past Spanish colonial buildings that don't beg for attention. They just exist, casually. The Castillo de San Marcos, started in 1672, sits there like it's still annoyed about something from the 1700s. Built from coquina stone that literally absorbs cannon fire, it's the architectural equivalent of shrugging off drama. Waves crash nearby, tourists whisper. History doesn't care. Here's the unexpected part. Despite the age, St. Augustine isn't stiff. It's lively. Narrow streets pulse at night with music, ghost tours, and people arguing about where to eat like it's a sport. You'll hear accents from everywhere, yet the town never feels crowded. It feels layered, like every generation added something and forgot to clean up. Emotionally, St. Augustine does something sneaky. It slows you down without asking permission. You stop rushing, you linger, you read plaques you'd normally ignore. Then you realize you're smiling for no reason. Comic relief? Sure. You'll probably pay $6 for water and justify it by saying, well, it's historic hydration. Number 11, Fernandina Beach, Florida. Fernandina Beach looks like it woke up one morning and decided to be charming on purpose, and then over-delivered. Sitting on Amelia Island, this town blends Victorian elegance with a seafood addiction it refuses to hide. Population? About 13,000. Big enough to function. Small enough that the town feels like it remembers you from yesterday, even if it doesn't. Downtown Fernandina is pure postcard energy. Brick streets, wraparound porches, buildings that look like they should be narrating their own backstory. Then there's Fort Clinch, whose construction began in 1847, standing guard near the shoreline like it's still waiting for a very specific enemy. Ocean breeze hits, cannons stare at nothing. You feel safe and dramatic at the same time. But the soul of this place? Shrimp. The Isle of Eight Flags. Shrimp Festival, running since 1964, is not a cute side activity. It's a civic flex. For a few days, the entire town turns into a celebration of crustaceans, live music, and people eating like they've earned it. Emotionally, Fernandina Beach feels polite but playful, like someone in a pressed shirt who tells surprisingly good jokes. And the comedy writes itself when you realize you came for a quiet coastal stop and somehow scheduled your day around food trucks and parades. You'll leave thinking, I could live here, which is Fernandina's favorite trick. If this video's already making you Google weekend trips you can't afford yet, hit like and subscribe. It tells the algorithm you enjoy beautiful places, bad decisions, and towns that quietly ruin your productivity. Now back to the list. Hashtag 10, Apalachicola, Florida. Apalachicola doesn't introduce itself. It just lets you figure it out slowly, like a person who knows they're interesting and doesn't need to prove it. Sitting on Florida's forgotten coast, this town has a population hovering around 2,300, and somehow that feels generous. It's quiet, not empty. Quiet with intention. This place was built on oysters, literally and culturally. For decades, Apalachicola Bay fueled one of the most important oyster industries in the country. The town's identity formed around working docks, early mornings, and salt in the air. The Florida Seafood Festival, whose roots go back to 1946, isn't nostalgia. It's memory with seasoning. Walking here feels different. Streets are wider, time stretches. Wooden houses lean slightly like they're listening. You'll notice boats more than cars. People talk slower, not because they're tired, but because there's no rush worth respecting. Even recent events, like the planned limited oyster harvest reopening in 2026, feel deeply personal to the town. This isn't policy, it's survival. Emotionally, Apalachicola hits you sideways. You think you're visiting. Then you realize you're observing a way of life that refuses to perform. Comic relief shows up when you check your phone, see 0 notifications, and feel relieved. That's Apalachicola. It doesn't entertain you, it disarms you. #9. Mount Dora, Florida. Mount Dora feels like Florida accidentally wandered north and decided to stay. Set beside Lake Dora, this town of about 16,800 people leans hard into charm and somehow avoids being cheesy. It's artsy without trying to sell you a dream catcher, relaxed without feeling sleepy. The lake sets the tone immediately. Calm water, long views, boats moving like they've got nowhere urgent to be. Then you hit downtown. Antique shops, cafes, and sidewalks that encourage wandering instead of speed walking. The Mount Dora Arts Festival, running since 1975, didn't make this town creative. It just gave it a calendar reminder. Historic buildings like the 1893 Donnelly House quietly anchor the place. No ropes, no do not touch history energy, just life happening around old bones. You'll see people chatting on benches, couples arguing softly over ice cream flavors, and artists selling things you didn't know you wanted until now. Emotionally, Mount Dora feels like a deep breath you didn't realize you were holding. The comedy sneaks in when you promise yourself you're just stopping by and leave 3 hours later with a candle, a painting, and opinions about lakefront living. Mount Dora doesn't chase you, it lets you trip into it, and that's why it works. #8. Cedar Key, Florida. Cedar Key feels like Florida hit pause and forgot to unpause, but in a good way. This place doesn't ease you in. It immediately asks, "Why are you walking so fast?" Sitting out on the Gulf, Cedar Key is tiny, breezy, and stubbornly uninterested in modern chaos. No big resorts, no neon distractions, just water, wood docks, and the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring for a second. The town leans hard into its fishing roots, and it doesn't apologize for it. The Cedar Keys National Wildlife Refuge, established in 1929, surrounds the area with protected islands that feel untouched, like nature forgot to update them. Pelicans glide low, boats idle, conversations drift instead of rush. The Cedar Key Seafood Festival, usually held in October, isn't a spectacle, it's a gathering. Locals, visitors, music, food, and 0 sense of urgency. What sneaks up on you emotionally is how peaceful this place feels without trying to impress you. You'll sit by the water thinking about nothing, not scrolling, not planning, just existing, and then it hits you. This town isn't boring, it's confident. The humor comes when you realize your phone has been in your pocket for an hour and you didn't miss it. Cedar Key doesn't steal your attention, it quietly convinces you to give it away. #7. Dunedin, Florida. Dunedin is what happens when a town figures out balance and doesn't overthink it. It's coastal without being chaotic, lively without being loud. With around 36,000 residents, it's one of the bigger towns on this list, but somehow still feels personal, like it knows when to calm down. Founded in 1899, Dunedin grew up with intention. You feel it biking through town, strolling its clean downtown streets, or heading toward Honeymoon Island State Park, where the beach looks like it's been carefully edited by nature. White sand, clear water, and sunsets that make strangers stop mid-sentence. The town encourages movement, walking, biking, lingering. It's the kind of place that gently pressures you into being outside. Emotionally, Dunedin feels optimistic. Friendly faces, breweries tucked into corners, parks that don't feel decorative. they're actually used. And the comedy shows up when you realize this quick stop has turned into a full afternoon, and now you're debating where to eat dinner like you live here. Dunedin doesn't trap you, it just makes leaving feel unnecessary. Number 6. Tarpon Springs, Florida. Tarpon Springs hits you with culture before you even understand what's happening. One minute you're driving through Florida, the next you're surrounded by Greek flags, sponge boats, and the smell of food that demands respect. With a population around 25,000, this town punches way above its weight culturally. The famous sponge docks aren't a tourist invention, they're history still working. Greek immigrants shaped this town around the sponge industry, and the influence stuck. Restaurants serve recipes that feel passed down, not printed out. Bakeries smell illegal. And every year on January 6th, the Epiphany Cross Dive turns the water into a stage for tradition that's been repeated for generations. Emotionally, Tarpon Springs feels proud, not loud pride, grounded pride, like a town that knows exactly who it is and doesn't care if you're late to the realization. The humor creeps in when you say you'll just grab lunch and end up eating like you're training for something. Tarpon Springs doesn't overwhelm you, it feeds you, repeatedly. 5. Safety Harbor, Florida. Safety Harbor sounds like a retirement brochure title, and then surprises you by actually being interesting. With about 17,000 residents, this town moves quietly, but carries serious historical weight. The Safety Harbor site, designated a National Historic Landmark in 1964, reminds you that this place mattered long before it felt peaceful. Walking through Safety Harbor feels gentle. Tree-lined streets, calm parks. The waterfront at Philippi Park stretches out like it's giving you permission to breathe. Nothing competes for attention. Everything just exists in harmony. And that's the trick. This town doesn't sell excitement, it offers stability, and somehow that feels rare. Emotionally, Safety Harbor works because it lowers your defenses. You stop checking the time. You sit longer than planned. The comedy comes when you realize you've been relaxed so long, you forgot what you were stressed about in the first place. Safety Harbor doesn't dazzle, it steadies you, and honestly, that might be the most charming move of all. 4. Macanopy, Florida. Macanopy feels like you accidentally drove into a painting and the frame locked behind you. This town doesn't announce itself. No billboards, no urgency, just oak trees dripping with Spanish moss and streets that look like they've been waiting for you since the 1800s. With roots going back to American settlement around 1821, Macanopy carries itself like it's already heard every trend pitch and politely declined. The historic district, formally recognized in 1983, is small but dense with character. Antique shops aren't curated for vibes. They're stacked with objects that feel like they lived real lives before ending up on a shelf. Old homes sit low and wide, shaded by trees that look ancient enough to remember secrets. There's an almost theatrical stillness here, like the town is holding a breath on purpose. Emotionally, Macanopy does something unexpected. It makes you quieter. You lower your voice without realizing it. You slow your steps. You start noticing small things. Porch railings, window frames, the sound of wind instead of engines. Then comes the comedy. You'll swear you've only been there 10 minutes, check your watch, and realize an hour disappeared. Macanopy doesn't rush you. It gently removes your sense of time and hides it somewhere behind an antique dresser. 3. DeLand, Florida. DeLand feels alive in a way that sneaks up on you. It's not flashy, it's not sleepy, it's balanced. Anchored by Stetson University, founded in 1883, this town carries a quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly what it offers. With a population of about 37,000, it's big enough to buzz and small enough to breathe. Downtown DeLand works because its functional charm. Cafes, murals, bookstores, and sidewalks that actually get used. Then there's the Athens Theater, opened in 1921, standing downtown like a reminder that entertainment didn't start with streaming subscriptions. The building still hosts live performances, and when the lights go down, The room feels like it remembers applause. Emotionally, DeLand feels optimistic. Students bring energy, locals bring rhythm. You'll see people who clearly planned to stay for 10 minutes and ended up staying for dinner. The humor shows up when you realize this college town isn't trying to act young. It just happens naturally. DeLand doesn't chase relevance, it already has it, and it lets you borrow some for the afternoon. Number 2. Seaside, Florida. Seaside feels like someone engineered charm in a lab and then accidentally gave it a soul. Built starting in 1981, this town is one of the earliest and most famous examples of new urbanism, where walkability, human-scale design, and community weren't buzzwords. They were the blueprint. And somehow, it worked. Everything here looks intentional. White cottages, picked fences, paths that gently pull you toward the beach like they know where you're headed before you do. The town gained pop culture fame as a filming location for The Truman Show, and honestly, that tracks. Seaside feels curated, but not fake. It feels like a place that believes in itself. Emotionally, Seaside messes with you. You start imagining a different version of your life. One where you bike everywhere, know your neighbors, and somehow own linen clothes. The comedy hits when you catch yourself thinking, I could do this, while standing next to a $12 smoothie. Seaside doesn't pressure you to stay. It lets the fantasy do the work. Number 1. Anna Maria, Florida. Anna Maria doesn't compete, it opts out, and that's why it wins. Incorporated in 1923, this beach town at the north end of Anna Maria Island made a quiet decision to stay small and never apologize for it. No high-rises, no skyline ego, just homes, sand, and the Gulf doing what it's always done. The Anna Maria City Pier, built in 1911, stretches into the water like it's been thinking about sunsets longer than anyone alive. People fish, kids run, pelicans act like they own the place. And honestly, they kind of do. The town feels human-scaled in every direction. You can walk it, bike it, learn it. Emotionally, Anna Maria disarms you completely. You relax faster than expected, laugh easier, stay longer than planned. The humor comes when you realize your biggest concern is whether to watch the sunset from the beach or the pier, an argument you'd happily lose. Anna Maria doesn't shout its charm, it whispers it, and somehow, that's louder than everything else. If any of these towns just hijacked your weekend plans, that's not an accident. That's charm doing its job. Drop a comment with the one you disappear into first. Hit like if Florida just surprised you, and subscribe, because there are still places like this hiding in plain sight.